Hey, hi everyone. In this video, we'll talk about one of the important thing which most of the product management interview you will face, right? As if you are aspiring for the product management role, and that is how exactly we solve a problem, a given problem, right? Or I would say a much more broader and open-ended problem, right? So in this um, session, we'll solve a problem which states improve Google Maps. Okay, so how exactly we should solve this problem, right? So for any problem to start with, it is imperative that we understand why there is a need to improve Google Maps, right? What is the business objective? Then we'll see what we'll be doing up post that is we'll understand what are the key user who are actually using that product, and for whom uh, or for which segment of the user set or which segment of user we should solve the problem, right? Then next what we have to do is to we need to understand, we need to make sure that we understand their um, those particular user segment well, what are the major pain points, right? And then what we'll be doing is we'll prioritize which all pain points we need to pick up, right? And then we'll brainstorm some solutions around it for those which caters to those problems, right? And then finally we go ahead and define some of the success metrics which will help us to understand if our solution, which has been defined for different problem sets, is really um, is really a success or not. Is that the solution which we have identified, is it something, are we really able to solve the problem for the users, right? And that is something we do it with the help of the success matrix, right? So this is the overall, you see, the you can say the outline in which we solve this kind of problem statements, right? So the problem here is, again, I will try to reiterate, is to improve Google Maps, right? So first of all, we need to see that what is the business objective, like why exactly we are doing this. Is it something we are trying to uh, increase the revenue, or what kind, or is there an issue with the retention or something, like what is the problem, right? So in order to holistically look to which phase of the user behavior, right, we are trying to solve here, like where exactly the problem could have arisen, and that's why we have been given this problem statement. So we try to so there is a kind of user behavior which talks about acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenue. So it's like AARRR frame, kind of acronym which is given, widely used in product management. So it starts with acquisition. Acquisition is more about how people are discovering the Google Maps, right? Then about the activation, so are these people are really taking the actions which you want to take them, right? And then is the engagement, like are our activated users are continuing to engage with the product or not. And then is about the referral. It's more about how exactly, that if our users who are using the product, right, are there enough to tell the others also to uh, to use that product. And then is about the revenue, that is like, are we able to generate, are the users are willing to pay or not. So with respect to the Google Maps, right, so if you see, uh, because the most of the people are already aware of the Google Maps, so I don't think there is an issue there. I am not assuming there would be an issue with the kind of awareness. Also, there won't be an issue with respect to the activation, because people are much more aware about these Google Maps. Like some or the other way, they would have used it, right? They would have taken some of the basic searches on the Google Maps for their wherever they want to visit. Then it's about the retention. So retention is more about the engagement, right? Like, are the users who have used the product, right, like are they again using it or not, right? Are they are continuing, engaging with the product or not. And the another thing is about the referral. So again, with the referral, like people do talk about Google Maps. Almost every people are aware about Google Maps, right? And given the fact that they have a billions of users, right? And the revenue, I think, given the fact that Google is a very big company, and with respect to the maps, their major source of revenue is about the ads, and they are very, you know, I would say very acumen about it, and they know how exactly to tackle that. So what exactly we are doing here is the AARR. So so as an aspirant, this is AARR. So as an aspirant, so we need to go through all these three metrics and check with the interviewer which is the area they would like to address. Like, so it begins right from activation, right? Sorry, acquisition to activation, and then retention, referral, and revenue, right? So so I'm ruling out the acquisition part, right? Activation, then also ruling out revenue, and and I would say, the referral. I'm considering, let's say, I'm assuming that engagement is where the area where you know this whole question lies, where is about improving the Google Maps. So this is so I'm trying to narrow down the scope of the problem, right? And that's how you need to do when you are giving the interview. Now, once we have that, so if we have to increase the engagement, we need to first of all understand some of the key user personas, or I would say key users and users who are using. So we need to segment it, right? So when we're talking about the user persona, so user persona is nothing but understanding the user, right? How or what the demography looks like of a user, right? From where exactly it belongs, right? What kind of user he is his, like, um, coming from the rural areas, urban areas, right, like what is the you can say, what are the needs of the user, what are the major pain points of the user. So I would categorize into three major sets, or I would say four major segments of this Google Map. One would be the daily commuter. So daily commuter, another could be, I could think of, the traveler or the tourist, and another, I'm just little bit thinking creatively, or I would say relevant segments with respect to the current trending pain points, or I would say trending, uh, you know macro, I would say macro level problems, right? That is eco, you can say, you can, eco conscious user. And the other set which I could think of is the casual user, right? So if I talk about the daily commuter, right, so I'm considering the demographics. So demographics, they could be the urban professionals, students, or anyone with a regular commute, right? What could be the major needs of this segment, right? Uh, they would need a reliable, fast route or to work or their, school, right? They would need the real time traffic updates, um, some kind of a public transport information, maybe the bus schedules, right? What is the parking availability, and is there any possibility of dynamic rerouting or not? And the major pain points could be, for them, it could be the delays due to traffic which they want to visit, right? um, or it could be the limited public transport information, or maybe the changing schedules, right? This could be the major pain points for the daily commuter user segment. The another set of user the another no, user segment which I talked about is the about the traveler or the tourist part, right? So the demography, if I talk about, it could be the peoples who are traveling to maybe, unfamiliar cities or areas, or I would say the countries, right, or I would say the regions, right? And what could be their needs? Their needs could be, um, you know uh, maybe the language translations or the local tips, right? Well, let's say if someone is visiting, what kind of local tips they should be, or hygienic factors they should consider, right? Be it the weather, or the some cultural awareness about those local places, right? What could be the directions to those new locations, right? Or could be the hotels or restaurants. um, some of the recommendations which could be related to food or the activities which they would like to do. Is there any possibility of multimodal transport or not? And if I talk about the pain points, right, what could be the key pain points for these traveler tourists when they are going for a very unfamiliar cities, right? um, it could be the language barrier, right? Difficulty navigating public transport, or how exactly they could plan their trip, right? So these could be the major pain points. Um, another set of user segments which I talked about was the eco-conscious user, right? The eco-conscious user, if I talk about the demography, right? Mostly, if you see the Gen Z people, right? Like they're quite eco-conscious, and they would be in the future. They would be the main, no, mainstream user segment, right? So they are environmentally conscious users, the cyclist or electric vehicle users, right? And what could be their needs, what they would like to know, or what they really want, right, from the Google Maps. They need a sustainable route options, right? They would rather prioritize cycling or walking or using public transport, right? If they are the owner of the EV charging vehicles, they would rather want to know where are the EV charging stations are, what are the different rental options they could have, right? And they would rather avoid the routes where the carbon impact is much higher, right? So the major pain point for these could be the lack of eco-friendly route options, right? uh, Difficulty or to discover the charging stations or the bike paths, right? Now the casual, if I talk about the casual explorer, these are the ones who are kind of adventurers, or casually looking for things to do, right? They would if their major needs would be what, they would need a recommendation for nearby attractions, restaurants, or activities. They would they would rather the right to discover some kind of authentic places, right, nearby where exactly they are. They would rather see the real time reviews, right? What are the best time to visit a particular place, right? So the major pain points for them, again, to they're cluttered with so many informations. They would rather need a much more clarity where exactly what all areas they would like to explore. So these kind of things. So if I talk about, if we again, so once we have this user persona, we understand their demographics, their needs, right? Now we had to again tie up which user segment we need to pick up, right? So given the fact that we need to increase the engagement, what exactly is going in my mind is, let's choose a segment which is least catered as of now currently by Google Maps, and that's where we see the maximum percentage increase in terms of the user engagement. So if I talk about the daily commuter, right, I talked about the major pain points is like delays due to day traffic, or I would say the limited public transport information and all. So those things is already embedded in Google Maps, right? People, if you search, you can easily see, right? If we talk about the traveler tourist, I talked about the major pain points such as language barriers, or difficulty in navigating public transport places, right? And about the trip planning. So this is something unique, right? So if you talk about the traveler, the tourist, like um, if you see their major pain points, you will hardly find majority of those pain points has been currently being dealt with the Google Maps. So if you talk about trip planning, it's not there, right? Like if you have to trip plan, most like quite a good amount of effort we need to put. Similarly, if you talk about the eco-conscious user, I talked about the major pain points is lack of eco-friendly route options. We are not able to discover that right now, right? um, Difficulty in the charging stations or bike paths. And even if you talk about the casual explorer, I talked about the major pain points is overloaded with so much information, difficulty finding the best recommendations. So even if you see in the Google Maps, right, we have an option called Explorer. So in Explorer, it basically helps you to explore. So this capability is somewhere meeting fairly the needs of the this particular user segment, that is casual explorer. So which are the two major segments we should look after for? So one is where I see is the traveler, or I would say the tourist, and the another option which I could think of is the eco-conscious user, right? So these are the two user segments which I'm targeting, traveler or tourist, or the eco-conscious user, right? And among these, now what exactly we need to do, right? We identified the segments which we need to pick up, right? We identified the major pain points. Now it's the time to prioritize which set of pain points we need to pick up, right? So in this, if you have to identify which kind of pain points, we need to figure it out. One of the way is to, think of, if something, if some area of problems which has been completely neglected, probably you could have target that, right? If there are not much options available out there, and you believe, if you believe that Google Maps has that level of information, or because even the fact that Google is a very giant company, they have a lot of other informations from where they can pull those informations. So I believe one of the thing is about the trip planning, right? It's If you see, most of the users do struggle with the trip planning, right? It's difficult to, let's say, if you have to plan a trip, let's say if you want to plan a trip for Kerala itself, right? Let's say for uh, for Munnar or some places which you want to visit in Kerala, right? So in that case, if you have to plan the trip, then it becomes very tedious. It takes a lot of amount of time for the end user. The another thing, we should given the fact that we have already decided which user segment, the pain points is the lack of eco-friendly routes, right? Lack of eco-friendly routes. And the another set of problem which we can pick up is, you know uh, difficulty in experiencing the unfamiliar places, right? Now, these are the three problems which are targeting. One is trip planning, lack of eco-friendly routes, or difficulty in separating the unfamiliar places, right? Now, if we talk about the trip planning, right, um, what exactly is the problem here? For example, let's say if I'm a person who's belonging from North India, right, and I want to visit somewhere, let's say Kerala, right? So what exactly is the current user flow looks like I need to actually see, or maybe I might hire a package from a particular agency, right? Then again, I have to look for the tickets and all, right? And what are the different options I have? I need to hop in from one uh, website to another website, right? And then again, plan all those things. I need to check for what could be the weather conditions out there. I need to be very aware about the real time weather conditions out there when I'm actually about to travel, right? So thinking about this, it's very chaotic, I would say, situation for an user who is actually wants to travel to an unfamiliar place. So how about we solve this with help of the natural language interface for planning? So think about, just say user can just go ahead and type or speak, and something like, let's say I want a 5 day or 4 day a trip to, let's say, Kerala, right? And that particular interface, or that particular you know interface on the Google Maps just generate a particular custom itinerary, right? By multiple other follow-up inputs from the user, such as, are you a kind of adventure user, or would you like to do some kind of activity to which month you would like to travel, right? So those kind of informations, that could be a kind of a follow-up conversation with the interface, and then it can provide all set of information within a single interface, right? Okay. And it can even include the flights, which could be the right suitable timing, what are the different point of area of interest, by getting the input from the features such as explore, right, which is already there. So you just need to correlate those things with the user inputs, right? So it can create a very very planned information. And not only that, for example, let's say the user go ahead and you know opted for particular that option. Let's say they planned and they use it, right? That On the real time one, let's say if I move to Kerala and I'm traveling to a place or kind of a restaurant, right? It can give me some of the cultural level informations too. Hey, do you know that if you like the food, you need to actually close the leaf on onto your side, and if you don't, you can close it on the opposite side, right? So these kind of information, let's say if I'm traveling to some other place, right? Let's say completely a different country, let's say Japan, right? And it can even give some options. It will give me some information related to the to the cultural informations too, right? Avoid tipping or in the restaurant, or maybe some other facts, right, which could be could help us to feel that we are not completely at unfamiliar place. We can actually uh, navigate to those places in a much confident manner, right? It can give the real time information. Say let's say recently, in Kerala, right, a landslide happened in Wayanad. It can tell me, it can, let's say if I'm traveling, if I'm traveling there, right, it can let me know, hey, do you know, there is a landslide in Wayanad. Maybe you can um, avoid going that place, and you can opt for these other multiple options, let's say some nearby places, right? This level of intelligence and personalization can really create a very good engagement from these kind of user segments, right? Now, the another problem statement which we identified is the lack of eco-friendly routes. So just think about, right, the current how exactly the Google Maps give us the route. The users often default to the fastest, the shortest route, right? But which and that might not be suitable for the eco-friendly users, right, where they would like to have a much more environment friendly routes, right? So one thing, that's along with the options which the Google Maps gives, right? This is the shortest path. They can even in parallel give, this is the eco-friendly route, right? That can prioritize your fuel efficiency, minimizes emissions, or a much better green transportation modes. Like it can combine it with the kind of some part you do biking, or let's say walk, or maybe you can use public transport. So this could be a third option alongside the fastest and the shortest route, which the Google Maps gives by default. So this can even display the carbon footprint of each travel options, right? So you just see that how much engaging it is. So user would be able to know the environmental impact of their choice. Let's say if they are going with the fastest route, that maybe that can help them to reach to their destination much faster, but at what cost? If the end users, if the target users, right, is a eco-friendly, or I would say the eco users, right, eco-conscious users, they would rather prefer, right, and they would be really pride or motivated by this set of information, that they how they positively contributed to the environment. So this will actually customize the complete eco route suggestions, based on the different other inputs too, like what kind of vehicle type am I on electric or hybrid or conventional, and that can provide a much more tailored experience to this set of users. Now, the another pain point which I identified was the difficulty in experiencing the unfamiliar places, right? So just think about, let's say if I go to if I have planned, right, a 4 day trip to Kerala, right, and if I'm traveling on the vehicle, right, and I have turned on that particular kind of an option such as say audio guide. Now, in real time, Google can actually give me some of the insights of the nearby, right? Hey, if I'm traveling to, let's say, Munnar, right, it can tell me some of the historical facts in real time. Do you know this Munnar, this whole mountain is being taken care by Tata. They have employed this many people, right? And they actually cultivate this kind of uh, tea, right? You may actually go ahead and visit their factory. So all these things information would be very very give a very enriching experience. And if you see about the positive impact from the people who are, with respect to the accessibility, let's say a blind person is doing, right, it can actually describe what is going on, like what are the key things it can actually, give them in the audio format, right? It can basically tell, and and those people can, and the people who are being just see, that these set of people, right, or especially the travelers, right, and even with respect to the accessibility, this will really create a very enriching experience. So and very engaging for the end users, right? So they would be able to know and look, they will just not, travel to that places, but they get familiarized authentically to that places by knowing the history, by knowing some of the nearby locations, by discovering it, right, by knowing much more um, important things by being at that place, right? So I believe these are the things which can actually, create a very engaging experience for the end users. And this would definitely, this and given the fact that we have chosen those segments which are currently very neglected, the user engagement jump, or I would say the percentage increase in the user engagement must be higher, right? So now we have come up with the solutions, right? We first of all, we identified why this problem was need to be solved, what is the business objective, right? We identified which customer journey we should, solve for. We identified which all the user personas which should target. We understand about that user persona, their pain points. We look after which key pain points we need to solve. We came up with the different solutions, and now it's about the time to identify how exactly we should measure the success, right? So for example, let's say about the trip planning. If we have to measure the success of it, like, maybe one of the options we could think of, right, like number of people who have actually planned or who have actually utilized this feature, right? Or or I would say, let's say they have hit the trip planner CTA button, right? And they are not only, planned their trip, but they have also visited it, right? So that's how we will able to understand um, the complete utility, right, in that particular, feature cycle. So the end user just not need to plan the objective, but they also have to actually, you know you use that, right? So it's not like they just planned it, but okay, they didn't find it. So in that case, that does not actually solve the user pain point, right? So we need to be very conscious when we are coming up with the success metrics. So one of the success metrics for trip planning is we can think of the number of users who are, uh, planned for the trip, right? At the same time, number of users who have actually, visited those places when that trip planner have actually given that, right, information. So that information can Google can actually identify, like by the helping of the Google Maps, GPS, right, locations. They can, if they have really checked into that restaurant, if they have really booked that particular flight or not. So those set of information Google can actually, validate, and that's how we can understand that what is the success of this particular feature. And not only that, we also need to look, take we can even take reviews or sentiment analysis, and that's helpful to understand what is the feedback, right? If this really been, solving the pain points of the user, but not only just solving the pain points, but is it solving in the right way or not? Then another about, we talked about the eco-friendly routes, right? We thought about the third option, such as, it could be uh, eco-friendly route options, right? So we can see that number of users um, who are actually, choosing that eco-friendly options, right? And uh, and also not only just choosing, but they are actually traveling to that, following through that route or not, right? And that could be something we can average out per week per user, right? That could be one of the success metrics. The If you talk about the audio guide, right, we can do the success, we can actually understand the success metrics with the help of such as, the number of users who have activated the audio guide, right? And the average session time for each audio guide. That will help us to understand that users are like, what is the retention of that particular feature of that audio guide, right? For how long the users are using it, right from turning what to that particular, when they're following that route, right? So that will help us to understand. It's not like, that user has just clicked on for the first time, they understood, they just use that feature, they didn't like, and they stop it, right? So if we just track the number of clicks or number of people who've activated it, that won't be a good success matrix. But we need to understand, need to see the length of the session time on that particular audio guide, right, once they turned on. So this is how, like, we can figure it out, the success metrics. And now once we have done that, we can take the feedback from the interviewer, or maybe like when you are having this discussion, just make sure that you are keeping your interviewer loop in. Are you going, this is what they're looking, or or they would like to have the discussion in a different way, right? So this is not I would say a rigid framework one should follow, but if it is something you are following, if let's say if you don't have any other frame or structured way, so this could be one of the way you can go ahead and solve this. But in every other problem, right, in where you are solving a problem, right, it could go in any other direction. When you have the interviewer, how exactly the interviewers are asking the follow-up questions, right? So so just be very very conscious about what you're saying. Be logical when you're saying something, right? And um, and keep your logical sense open when you are giving the interview. Just don't go ahead and say anything, right? That will not going to help in any way. It is imperative that whenever you are solving that problem along with the interviewer, try to be logical why you are choosing that particular option, what is the rationale behind it. Just be very cautious about it. So yeah, with this I would end this session. Thank you.